So, David, you want to roll into some trolling scenarios, or?
Yes, sir. Let's do that. Let's do a couple layouts and talk about what you would use where and that type of thing.
Okay.
I think most guys, may pull 2 or 3 lines at a time, but let's talk about how many you like to pull.
Okay. Well, there's nothing wrong with pulling 2 or 3, depending on how many people you have on the boat. Of course, you get to a school of Spanish, Blue, whatever, and 4 or 5 lines go off and you've only got 2 sets of hands. That can be an absolute nightmare. Generally, when we're on the boat, we like to pull 4 to 5 lines, provided you have enough hands. Basically, off the back of the boat, we will put our planers, whether they be number 1 or number 2 planers, depending on the depth. And we can talk about planer depth here in just a second. So off the back of the boat, we'll pull planers. We'll pull one about 50 or 60 foot, maybe off the back, maybe one a little bit further out. So you can use whatever spoon you want, a gold spoon, a silver spoon, pink spoon, green spoon, whichever you want on there. Usually on what I would consider your longer lines further back, we would go with trolling sinkers on those, with whatever color spoon you want. I would recommend on those spoons to put a variety of different colors out. That way you can dial in what they're after that day. Some days, silver spoon with pink flash tape is the hot ticket, and the next day it may be green. So I always recommend putting a few different options out there for them and let them check out the buffet and see what they're after. Definitely put a gold spoon out there and definitely put a silver one out there, but there are plenty of options. We do have some other products here. These are coated painted spoons, pink chartreuse, and this one here is a silver spoon, but it's a hammered spoon, looks like scales on there. We have a lot of different painted spoons. They're all online. You can check out all the colors. And now once we get back we're gonna go back to the bird here. And if you are able to, I would definitely pull this on the center, on the shotgun, far back. And it can never be too far back, in my opinion. Keep it within sight. You can pull. David's laughing. That would be the pancake move. Send it back real far. So you can control a traditional spoon on the back of this if you want to. A really cool thing to do is to use one of these darts or scoops. They work really well. But this is definitely something you need in your arsenal. It works very, very well on your long line there or your shotgun all the way back. You can pull it. You don't have to pull it on the shotgun. You can pull it on one of your long lines on your starboard or port side. I prefer it straight down the middle. Another thing you can do on your long lines on the side, which work really well, and you need a little bit of angle on this for it to work the best, is to pull one of these spreader bars. You can pull it down the center, but I wouldn't put it too far back. It works well. Just get it out of the prop wash off the back and a little bit of that clear water, and it will produce for you. I promise.
How much is that?
$20.
20? Okay.
$20. Yeah. So if we want to talk about, which I guess we're talking about little trolling scenarios, we can talk about planers now versus trolling sinkers. A lot of times the fish aren't always feeding on top. They're feeding down in the water column. You've got 2 options. You've got a trolling sinker, which will get you down pretty far, but not as far as a planer. And a lot of that will have to do with speed. The trolling speed needs to be between 4 and 6 knots. I would start out more in the 4 knot and bump it up. If you are going too fast, you're going to pick up more bluefish than you are Spanish. So you'll need to dial it back a little bit. The faster you go with anything in the water, the speed, it's going to want to pull it up. This booklet here, once again, explains the pros and the cons of speed versus the downforce on the planer and the trolling sinkers. It also explains the scope of line you put out. So for example, let me see, I'm going to use 50 foot. So this is just an example. This is, don't take this to heart. At 50 foot of line, you should be down to about, we're just going to do 50 and 50 to make it easy. 50 foot of line, 50 foot depth. So if you think you drop it another 50 foot, you would think you would be to 100, but that's not true. You would need more line to get there. I don't know why you would want to be that deep anyway. It was just an easy number for me to choose. But and this booklet explains it very, very well. It and like I said, I would definitely read this. It'll explain it better than I can, honestly. But with planers, we have 5 different size planers, but for your Spanish fishing and fishing off the beach without heading to deeper water, you're most likely going to use a number 1 and a number 2 planer. Most likely a number 1 is going to be the one you go to every time. A number 1 planer is going to get you anywhere from 5 to 12 foot of depth. A number 2 planer is going to get you from 10 to 20 foot of depth. Most rods that everyone has right now for trolling with planers, you can use 20 to 40 pound mono with those, either one of those planers, the 1s or 2s, and be fine. But once you jump up to the 3s, the 4s, and the 5s, you're going to definitely need to up your line just with the downforce and the pressure on it. But that's kind of another scenario, and would be more heading toward the blue water, fishing for meat fish. So that's probably another discussion. On planers, you want to kind of have them at a 45-degree angle off the back of the boat. And a planer does max out at a certain point. It's not going to keep diving. When you've got the force pushing down on that blade speed, it will eventually start to rise. So try to keep it at a 45-degree angle. That's going to get you to your maximum depth. If you don't need to be at your maximum depth, you just bring in some more line. Occasionally you will bump bottom, reel it in a little bit, keep going. Especially if you're out, over by Shark Island, a lot of shoaling under there, you got deep water, then it jumps up. So a lot of times the planer will trip. You'll have to keep an eye on it, and because it will reset. All of these planers that Clarkspoon has are easy to set. You just deploy them in the water, unset, and pay it out. And all you got to do is pull your rod back, snap it forward, it'll set itself, and you're right on down. So you don't need to, if it does get tripped and you don't have anything on the line that you can see, you can set it in the water without having to bring it in and set it back out again. So that's a pretty cool aspect of those. I'm 100% sure everybody's kind of going that way, but there are some older planers that people might have that are not easily set.
Just as a note in that spread, obviously going to set it at everything at a different length behind the boat, but once you get to catching fish, you can take those little rubber bands and mark the line, because you can easily roll that rubber band up on the reel.
Yep.
And that way you're especially with the for folks that haven't fished that much with a planer, it certainly helps you in understanding where you're, the length that were set at that you caught a fish. So just figure out a way for you. Some people mark it with a magic marker, some people, whatever, but I choose just to tie one of those little bitty rubber bands around it and leave it on there and then adjust it as I need to. I haven't fished with the spreader bar. I'm looking forward to that. I can afford a couple of those at $20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then as birds, haven't fished with a bird that much either, not inshore, but certainly looking forward to that. But I think most of the time when we're Spanish fishing, it's a north wind or a northeast wind, or it's something where you can't get out, or you know, the beach is calm and you're fishing right along the beach. I know that everybody talks about going over out in front of Shackelford and Shark Island and Spanish fishing. I've had just as much luck from the circle there at Atlantic Beach and further west, you know, through that whole area, really all the way down through Emerald. You just have to work. You just have to figure out where they are and look for birds and other things going on in the water. And you won't have any problem because the boats will certainly congregate once a few people start catching fish, and you just ease on down there and you'll get in the mix and just be respectful of each other. Everybody takes a turn. And if you see the fish on top of the water, don't run through the middle of them. Work the edges, circle them. You're gonna have a lot more luck yourself, and you're gonna keep everybody else having luck too without forcing them down. Any other tips like that, Loren?
One thing I would suggest, and marking your line, that is excellent. I don't know if any of you guys troll with braid, but if you do, you can buy the multicolored braid, and usually it's marked, I think, in 10-foot intervals with the different color changes, with the blue, white, dark blue, whatever, rainbow. That does help too. Always have some spinning rods on the boat. It's always fun to do, and sometimes it turns into a day of sight casting. Always have them on the boat. Always have some casting jigs. One of my favorites. I usually go with 1.5 ounce. This is a minnow jig here. That is a 1.5 ounce. We call this one here is a stick jig, holographic. This one's actually my favorite. And we also have some pokey jigs or some sad jigs. This one here is actually a 2 ounce that we just got in. I think Joe was using these a couple of weeks ago in the surf, catching some reds. But
yeah, that's when we did that trip over to Shark Island. We were throwing those. We just didn't have enough of them. We broke off those, and we were just a little bit short. I know that some people are already typing in the chat some questions. Is anything else you want to cover real quick, Loren, before I go into the questions?
No, that's the problem.
The single hook on the jigs that he's talking about is the way to go for sure, instead of putting a treble on it. It's just a whole lot easier. And if you got kids on the boat, you get a less chance of getting the hook in anybody, and it's a lot easier to operate. So just keep that.
Yeah. And we do sell the stick jigs with single hook. They are online. You'll have to kind of look for them. They should be under the jig, but we sell them in green chartreuse and a silver there. We do sell a lot of them, and that's an excellent point, an excellent safety point, especially if you've got younger anglers on the boat.
So one question is, how do the shads, minnows, and the sticks differ in their swimming action?
Okay, so stick and minnow. So basically, on your shad jig, all three of these are, and I don't have the other one. I apologize, I should have grabbed it, but it's online too. All of these are meant to be lifelike representations of bait fish. So depending on how you're fishing this, there's different techniques on these pokey jigs. A lot of times if you're fishing these in the surf, you're going to cast it out, you're going to let it sink, and you do want this one to kind of go down, bump on the bottom, and come back up, especially if you're trying to target those big reds. These two here, these are more suited for sight casting. You can fish in the surf when the bait fish are pretty close in for Spanish, and these are meant to be fished fast and rapidly. Fast retrieve, cast it out, give it some jerks and some pulls. They're going to hit it, and it doesn't matter what color it is.
You cannot make it erratic enough, in my opinion.
Right, because those bait fish are darting and trying to go every which way they can go. So, these are meant to be fished fast and rapidly and erratically. So, you probably will have to adjust your speed, but you'll get, if you keep missing them, slow it down just a little bit. But you will hook up on it. I hope that answers that question. We do have another jig. It's a chrome jig, comes in different colors, and the swimming action of that one is more suited, and it is to be fished fast and rapidly, but it mimics more of a wounded bait fish. with the shape. And I didn't grab one of those. I didn't think about it actually, but they're also will be under jigs, and those are the chrome jigs.